Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is Thursday, July 25th, and you are watching the Daily AI Show live. We are talking about structured prompting today, which is basically prompting using instructions and examples, or perhaps examples alone. But first, let me say that I'm here with Jyunmi. Say hi to the people, Jyunmi.
Hi to the people, Jyunmi.
There you go. Okay. So, one of the reasons that I'm doing most of the talking in today's show is because this is a form of prompting that I really adore. So, structured prompting means that you have to write less in terms of your prompts. You need to be a less skilled prompt engineer because the LLM is going to use the examples that you give as the prompt, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about strategy in a minute. But so basically, it's something that you could use to generate, let's say, a brand name or a description of a product or something like that. So it's a combination of instructions and examples. Another word for it is few-shot prompting. That's more than one word. But that's what few-shot means. The shots are the individual examples. It's close, but not the same as fine-tuning, right? Where you also give individual examples of the kinds of ways that you want a model to respond. Sometimes you use XML tags and prefixes, which can give you a little bit more of containers where you want things. And it has the ability, because of the examples that you're giving it, to be something that can get up to speed fairly quickly within a specific domain. So specific ways that healthcare likes to write things, specific ways that academics like to write things, right? Because at the moment, what we're talking about is generating text. I am using some images to generate text, and you'll see, but I haven't used images to generate images yet. Not that same kind of thing. So we're going to do a really simple one right now. But Jyunmi, do you have questions before I move forward about just the basic, like what it is, why it's important?
I think you covered pretty much everything that I was going to ask. I think for me, the takeaway for structured prompting is that ability to provide a strong framework for, and repeatable. I think with structured prompting, it's really good for automation. That's so it's far more reliable using what you described.
Right. Because when you look at what it's going to take for a business to adopt AI and really make great use out of it, one of the things that everyone talks about is, okay, so you really need to understand prompt engineering and become a really good prompter. But that's actually not, first of all, not a solid line in the sand, because the models are always developing, and therefore what was a good prompter 6 months ago is not necessarily the same rules you prompt with now. But because LLMs are pattern-based, pattern matching machines, the example that was good 6 months ago is still good now, right? If that's the way you want it written, that is a steady line in the sand, and therefore you can rely on those a little bit more. So our first example is going to be fairly simple. This is a structured prompt. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go back for just a second. Our first example is actually going to be a blank screen. When we suggested this, I did not realize that Google had hidden the structured prompts. So when you go to Google's AI Studio, it is aistudio.google.com, and you hit create a new prompt, you're automatically going to see this URL which ends in new_chat. Okay? So if you're in new_chat, you're basically just doing a prompt back and forth with Google's backend, with Gemini. You have the ability to pick your model. I'm using Gemini Flash over here. You have Gemini 1.5 Pro. You do have that 2 million context window, which is very, very sweet. And then you also have the ability to preview these Gemma models and also Gemma 1.0 Pro. But this is going to let you write a haiku about clouds. And that's just going to be your regular prompt, right? So that's my haiku about clouds. If I can get in this and edit it. So this is a way that I could feed it an example if I had a better haiku about clouds. Smiles, sky, blinks, 10. That doesn't make any sense, but let's just say that that's what I wanted it to be. Now, when I give it another topic of a haiku, it's going to take this as if it wrote the response, right? So this is an opportunity for me to get in and give it these few shots. But this is just on the chat screen. If we go to underscore data, now this is the structured prompt that we were talking about originally.
Massively different interface there.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, 100%. You can rename these fields so that they make more sense. You can have up to 500 examples. You can still choose your model here, right? So we could go to 1.5 Pro, we could go to Flash. We could even do some interesting stuff with vision. I thought I would have time to test that, but I did not, because Flash and 1.5 Pro are also vision models, right? Like that you'll see one of the examples I'm going to give is OCRing a screenshot, right? And then running some examples based on that. One of the things that I will say over here just for a minute about models, 1.5 Pro is going to give you more writing skill and the ability to be more creative in more high reasoning kinds of ways. That's not necessarily what you want from this, right? You're giving it examples. You want it to follow that. You want slight level of creativity, but not a ton of creativity. When I was prepping for this, I was super frustrated. And part of why I was frustrated was that I was using Pro and I was using the default temperature of 1, which temperature basically tells your model, like, hey, you can be somewhat creative. Right? The highest level is 2, and if you do 2, you're going to get like absolute gibberish. And if you do 1, it says, I don't want you to be creative at all. Just do the thing. So
you can go, what's the full range? 2 is crazy, and on the lowest end is?
0 is no creativity. So
0 is no creativity. Okay.
And this is how all of these work. Right. So temperature is embedded in models like ChatGPT. You don't get to set the temperature. It's just set at a temperature. We think it's probably set at 0.7, but we don't totally know because they don't publish that information. And in Claude, you can't set it on the front end, but you can set it on the back end. And we're going to compare a little bit of Claude's structured prompting as well. But I like for this kind of thing to set it at about 0.7 or 0.5. And if I move back to Flash, it's going to be less creative. The other thing before I go and show some of my examples is you can set up your examples. Hi, where are you doing this? Yeah. You can set up your examples in a Google Sheet, and then you can import them, right? And then once you run them, you can export your examples as a CSV or a Sheets file. So again, this is one of those places where you can really build up a series of examples that you can then refer back to and help tweak things as they move along.
I mean, that sounds super convenient, and it's a Google product, so being connected to other Google products makes sense. I had a quick question about the temperature again. You said you like 0.7 or 0.5. Is that just a happy medium for Google AI Studio, or is that in general with structured prompts that you find that that's the temperature that you like, you're most comfortable with?
It gives a nice variety without getting nuts, right? So one of the examples that we could say is, let's do this. Let's come back. The user's input is going to be write song title for grandmother's birthday. So I'm going to run this to have the model do it, and I am on 0, and I am using 1.5 Pro. And now this is what I'm getting in Pro, right? Pro wants to have a conversation with me. I also haven't given it any examples up here, but here are some song titles. If I move to Flash and I come back here, well, it's going to do the same thing. Grandma's Garden of Love. Okay, so let's... a birthday waltz for Grandma. Grandma's Garden of Love just sounds weird. Okay. So now we are going to move those up. We could move those up with this. I could move those to that, but I want to only have one of them. So I'm going to delete all the rest. And this is how you would go about building up a series of examples. You could also write them in Google Sheet, as I said. So now I'm going to come back here. I'm going to say, and up here right now, I'm going to change this. So I'm going to say, write a song title for occasion. So that's going to be my wildcard. Here, I'm going to say the occasion is the input. And now I'm just going to change that and say grandmother's birthday. So our next occasion is boss's retirement. And we're going to run this to get the output. Now it's going to try to do that based on that example, right? We're going to start in Flash and see what we get. All right. Flash is starting to change based on this output, right? So I had a temperature of 0. It's still giving me a bunch of things, but now we're saying, but now it's not having a conversation with me. It understands that I just want the one example. So I'm gonna, yeah.
And really quickly, what's the benefits of using Flash over Pro?
Oh, cost.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like the first benefit is that you get a ton. You can do so much more with not doing Pro. And what we're going to see in a couple minutes is that you can use a Pro level, a Claude Opus. Those are basically my two. The Gemini 1.5 Pro and Claude Opus, I think, are the best writers right now. So you can use those in order to get your really good examples, but then you use Flash to match them, right? So it has the ability. One of our co-hosts does a bunch of writing, like if you want things written, reach out to Aaron. And he needs to come up with like giant numbers of stuff. Let's say he needs to create 25 essays. So he might use something like this to help him identify the topics that would be in line with his client's previous essays, right? Those that he's written, that kind of thing. You don't want to use Pro for that because Pro is going to be both more creative and more expensive to do that. This would be a Flash topic. Okay, so now let's see. We have 2 examples. Now we're going to go first day of school and see if we can get our song lyric. All right, so you're seeing now it didn't give me quite as long a list. We're going to move these again up to the top. We're going to say the big day begins. Right? Oh, crayons and dreams. Boy, do you dream like large language models love those dreams. Like it's just
it likes a lot of those Dean words, right? Dreams, delve, dive.
It's totally true. All right, give me an occasion, Jyunmi.
Anniversary.
Okay.
Because if you didn't know, the Daily AI Show is coming up on their 1-year anniversary on the 7th of August. So please join us for that celebration.
There we go. Very nice. Subtle. Smooth. All right. So we've seen on my 4th one, it gave me exactly what I wanted. So I gave it 3 examples. And in fact, I worked the 3 examples with it, right? And now it gave me just one title, 1 year of stories. So that's what structured prompting can do for you. And now if I have a list of occasions that I want song titles for, I can just feed those in this and get the outputs. All right. So does that make sense, Jyunmi?
It makes perfect sense to me. Anybody in our live chat who has a particular question about it? I know Justin just posed a question about tweaking the settings of top P or top K settings. That relevant to Google AI Studio?
It is. Those are going to be advanced settings. Right now, I am going to take that out and try this at the higher temperature level. 1 year podcast anniversary. Here we go. And run that. So that's going to be 0.75. 1 year of sound and stories. I can just generate this response again. 1 year of stories to see 1 year of stories. If I take this up to 1.35, let's see. 1 year of stories. Mic drop, 1 year on, right? So we're starting to get a little bit more creative. If I take this all the way up, I'm curious whether that the examples will hold it to being a little more sane. Let's see. Okay. Mic drop, 1 year on. From the mic to the world, 1 year on. 1 year on. 1 year on the mic. From scratch to spotlight. So you can see this is mic drop 1 year strong. Here we go. So you can see you can play with temperature. It is not a hard and fast rule, right? So when it's not giving me what I want, I'm going to drop in temperature if it's not following my instructions or not following the pattern that I want it to follow. If it's not being creative enough or it's just too common or mundane, then I up the temperature. Okay.
So you do want to I like to imagine it as dialing into whatever the responses you're trying to get.
Right.
Okay.
And that's really what you're doing. It's just you're doing it in a way that pairs input and output examples, or this is what I'm gonna give you that you're gonna work on, and these are the outputs that I want. Okay, so Justin, I just have a top P here, but it's not available in this, so it's not something that happens for this. It is possible for me to turn on code execution, which is like Artifact, right? And it's also possible for me to output in JSON if I want to if I'm generating data that I want to import into another LLM or another system. That's available as well. Safety settings, annoying as yes. Go in and take these down to the bottom. This is Google trying to make Gemini safe, but what it does is it's super sensitive to all kinds of ideas, and so it will stop your prompt if you set it up to block some of those. Annoyingly, okay. I have not found a way to change that setting for me globally in all of my Gemini. So just a reminder that's going to happen. Okay, so let's go over to console, Anthropic console, and look at that a little bit. Are you seeing that, Jyunmi?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So this is the back end. What we were talking about was the back end of Google AI Studio. Now we're talking about the back end of Claude. So I can do the same thing with Claude. Claude is, let's see, give me a new prompt. So Claude is the same kind of idea. I can look at the model settings. I can set the max tokens. I can set the model that I'm using. Right, this is the equivalent of the Google Flash or Google Pro. These are the Sonnet models, the Claude 2, the Claude 2.0, and the Claude Instant, right? So these are all those varieties of things. I can also set the temperatures. And this, again, is going to take me all the way. Oh, no. Claude only goes 0 to 1. So that's interesting. I, probably start with around a 0.5. But Claude is also better in just a lot of ways. So if I pull up some of the things that I set up for Claude, let's see. When Brian goes away and isn't going to host, I actually asked for a host script. And so I took things from previous versions. What I can do here is then run this. So this is the episode about runway. And now I can just run this. This is that description. And now it's going to give me some ideas about what I might say as a guest host. I also can add that to my conversation or just add another pair. So when we did it in Google just had us looking at the user message. Then it gave us the model answer, and then we could edit the model answer, right? It wasn't blank. We had to run it. Then we got the model answer.
Right. For
Claude, you have the ability to enter your user message and then also add the assistant message. It doesn't need to run it first. You can just add those pairs.
Interesting.
And okay. What it does is this tells the LLM, both LLMs, that when you get something like this is what you wrote. Hey, look how good you were. And we could do that again. And I could say, like I could go into this and edit it and say something like, that's so good. You're great at this, right? I could give it some encouragement and then have it say, oh, right. So this is, and I've written this as well, right? So this is what I wanted it to say when it received this next piece of information. And so as you move down things, you're also prompting, you can also prompt with like, wow, you are so good at this. This is going so well, that kind of thing. Okay. The other piece of Anthropic Console, in terms of the dashboard, is you can have Claude write the prompt, which I do fairly often if there's something that I want. So give me a prompt. Write a LinkedIn post about topic. Claude likes these double curly brackets and capitals for topic. What I'm doing there is that's a wildcard. So I don't have to go in and edit my prompt all the time. I can just say topic equals, right?
Right. So it's expecting a variable in there.
Right. And so here we go. It gives me this nice long example of, it gives me this nice long prompt. I can come back and go into Anthropic Console and let's create a new new prompt. And I can just add that in the system prompt, right? Hey, where did you go? There you go. And now I can say, topic equals Olympics. And now I can run it. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. This is Claude. Topic equals Olympics. And then I'm just going to run it.
Now, is this particular variable sequence, is that specific to Claude, or is there equivalence in the other systems like AI Studio?
So it's a great question. Claude actually has its own more specific versioning of this. So it does its own variable pieces of information. And this says it cannot be run because I did too much in the... so I didn't give it a real user message. So let me give the user message, write for me. And the topic is Olympics. And now it will give me a response. And that is all based on this system prompt, right? If I go back to Gemini, or I go to ChatGPT, variables are possible to use there too. Rob Ledden calls them wildcards, but they're basic programming kind of stuff. It's a simple, like, this is a placeholder. Topic is a placeholder for topic, right? Or recipe is a placeholder for this chunk of text, which is a recipe, right? It allows you to reference something that your reference is a smaller chunk that calls back to calls to the forefront of the LLM's mind, right? Now we're anthropomorphizing, but we do because there aren't any other words. It calls to the forefront of the LLM's mind that that all of that stuff that equals, right? So when I reference recipe, that is what the LLM is putting back in its context each time without actually having to count it. All right.
And now are these references in the documentation, or are these things that you've translated from experience with other tools like AI Studio or ChatGPT or things like that?
Variables is definitely in Anthropic's documentation. I'm actually not sure about Google's documentation. Anthropic is a little bit more our friend who does actually try to let you know like the best way that it wants to be used, how you can get the best results from it. Google and ChatGPT, Google and OpenAI are a little more like, hey, go ahead, figure it out. Let us know what you find. Right?
Do you find that it translates? I mean, they're all LLMs. They all have similar functions. Do they, with some minor tweaks, is it a matter of formatting tweaks? But for the most part, whatever you learn in one, you can kind of apply to the others?
Yes. Although, and this is a question that I have asked Rob Lennon before. Like, have you tried to make this work with something else? Because Rob Lennon actually is a really great teacher in this. He's a really great teacher anyway, but he's really delved deep into the prompting and what works. And in fact, he was known for mega prompting and had somewhat of a crisis of confidence, wow, when he figured out that sometimes the examples that he was coming up with were giving him better results. Mm-hmm. So again, Rob calls that headless prompting. And so what like they do, the specifics are true kind of across the board. But if you work with one model, like if you get really into one model, you can start to understand the tiny nuances that make something really possible, right? Mm-hmm. With that model. And I will say, I should have said this up front. One of the reasons that I prefer Gemini, or I'm not discounting Gemini, is because Gemini is truly multimodal. I can give Gemini audio. I can give Gemini a video file. And it is, and I don't need to give it the transcript, right? I can give it a video file and ask for summary or something like that. So this is a little bit more of an example of that. So I am, in the example that you're seeing now, one of my things that drives me nuts is that I can't grab the text of tweets, and the comments and that kind of stuff without grabbing a whole bunch of other stuff. So what I have set up here is I'm going to give you a screenshot of a tweet, and I want you to just give me the OP, the original poster, author, and tweet handle, the OCR of the tweet, and then a little bit of information about when it was written. And then, because I find writing, I would like more details about the patterns we think they're writing using. I want to know what hook question that tweet answers, right? So that's what I've done. This is an example, and it's unique to Gemini, that you can get two different outputs, right? So I have this one, I'm inputting an image, and it's giving me the OCR, and then it's also giving me this. Those are both output columns, and you can stack those further out. Often we do this with a prompt where we say, okay, I want you to give me the content, and then I want you to also give me the question. That's something that a higher reasoning model can do, like Pro. You can see that I have move this into Flash, because I have examples, I can do that. And this was one of those places where I had a higher P level and it was not working for me. So let's see if I can copy this and we can do it. We can do the demo live, people. It's never a good idea, but let's try it. So we are at, I think we were at 5, weren't we? Didn't I have 5? Let's see. So I'm just doing that screenshot again. This is going to be a Matt Schumer tweet. And I was just looking for examples, so these aren't like totally brilliant tweets. Mm-hmm. But you can see that it has given me that context in that same pattern, right? And it is giving me the hook question, why would a more opinionated AI model be useful? This starts to get into the systems that I'm building for myself so that I can understand the patterns of the styles that people of the styles of people who appeal to me, that I admire, who are doing interesting things in how they're writing and explaining what they're doing in the world. So I see we're almost out of time, and I have one more example that I want to give you. And this is structured and not structured. What we really meant by structured was this data screen where you have this table of things. But again, you can do it in the regular system.
Okay.
One of the things that you can do as an input is you can just add audio. Why are you not giving me that? That's because that's okay. Turn it off. I can add something from my drive. I can upload something from my drive. I can, these are sample images and sample things, but I could actually just hit record audio and talk to it, which is what I did with this.
Ooh.
And it doesn't transcribe that necessarily. It takes it as input.
As the whole file. Okay. So it's not converting necessarily. It's just extrapolating from the actual audio itself.
Right. It is converting, like, it's not converting it as text and then a language model looking at it as text. Mm-hmm. Gemini 1.5 is a multimodal thing. It's actually engaging in the audio. Now, that may just mean that it has like a bigger brain, right? So it doesn't mean to write it as text and put it over here so that it can refer to the text, right? It can hold that. It can hold the concepts as text without doing that. Anyway, those are my big things. Let's grab.
Awesome.
Yeah, Boyd, talk a little.
So I had a quick question, and I know Justin had a question. So before we sign off, I want to address both of those. So the first one, my first question is, what would you say is your number one takeaway? So if someone's just learning, structured prompts, they're just learning about Google AI Studio and, other offers like from Anthropic or OpenAI, what do you think is the number one piece of advice when entering into learning structured prompting?
The number one takeaway is to let the model tell you how many examples it wants. So in the very beginning of this, I started with one example and it didn't quite do it, right? So like go back and look at that part. Start with one, get to the get the response. Okay, this is the kind of response I wanted. And we saw that as I moved those up into examples, it started to get closer and closer to what I want.
Gotcha.
I personally got really excited about ChatGPT because I don't enjoy writing. But I can speak to concepts, right? So what I was looking for was something that could do this, but I also have a fairly unique voice. So it's really obvious when I'm using AI because If it tries to match me, it starts using like really weird sensory things, like that time when you know how it feels when you pour lemonade on your head, and it's like no, that is not a sensory reference that I would make. Thank you very much.
Gotcha. All right, so let me pose this question from Justin here. Will models ever converge to a unified prompting structure, or will each model always prefer different styles based on their unique frameworks, data sets, RLHF, and other factors?
So I think models will converge, but people will prefer different styles based on their unique frameworks. So I think like a prompting style, we are definitely moving to talk to your computer and it does what you want it to do, right? That's the style. But I do think that people will, and people already do. I think Claude writes better than Gemini, right? But Gemini might follow my examples better than Claude, right? So there's those things.
Well, that leads me to another question, and I'll stop asking them. You've done a fantastic job running through all of these tools. Do you have a preference? Like, is there a clear winner? Because each of these models and the companies behind them, they offer some form of AI studio, or Anthropic has artifacts, or the playground for OpenAI and things like that. Is there a clear winner for you, or are we still always going to be bouncing in between when the latest, greatest version or tweak to them comes out?
So if I had to pick one, I would probably pick Claude. But Claude does not have search. It is not native multimodal, right? So if all you're doing is text, you're just using it to write, I would probably stick with Claude. However, AI Studio is basically free. Like you're limited after a while, but like I have not hit the limits. The other thing, I think I like Google's data analysis a little better because I can just upload a Google Sheet, right? And say, what is this? I can sort of do that with Claude. I can kind of do that with ChatGPT. They're not quite there. Also, Claude has artifacts. So for me, Claude is like, if you're going to put money somewhere, put Claude there. I did not mention Perplexity here. Perplexity doesn't have structured prompts, but it can also do really great examples, which, so maybe that's the last thing I'll end on. In answer to that question, you don't have to use the model to create the examples. If you think Claude does better stuff, then use Claude to write to create the examples that you want, right? Use Claude to create the prompt, use Claude to create the examples, use Claude Opus or Sonnet or like whatever you want in that context. You're not stuck to the model generating its own examples. I just thought that was an easy way to show you the way that I might go about doing this. I could have done those pairs in Claude, pulled all of that into a Google Sheet, or brought it into the structured data pattern of Gemini, and then had Gemini match those patterns, right? So you can use your favorite one and then bring it into something else if it's more cost effective. That's
right,
also that's also potentially the ChatGPT the ChatGPT 4.0 mini. I have not played with that. Maybe that's another thing, because that's now also cheaper. I mean, nothing's cheaper than free. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind.
Right.
We are not building production like apps. These are personal strategies. Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much, everybody. This has been
Thank
fun.
you, Beth. That was an excellent run through. I know Cisco appreciated, Justin appreciated, Jen's appreciated, and everyone else who's watching. From me, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we should say this was a Cisco request.
That's right.
If you have requests for shows you would like us to do, please send them. The Daily AI Show at gmail.com is a way to reach us. You can also post it in the comments under the show. And yeah, we have a newsletter. We have all kinds of things. You can find us at thedailyAIshow.com. And tomorrow we're talking about specific apps like for narrow business cases. Carl is going to walk us through getfloorplans.com, which is basically a transformational thing. If you've ever had to pay for floor plans that have changes, this is a really different model. But we'll be extrapolating from that on like what could that be for another industry as well. Anyway, we hope you'll join us. Thanks, and have a good Thursday.
Aloha.